Welcome to the Los Angeles Tribune page. Here you will find original news programming, exclusive digital events, and shows that are directly from the community. At the Los Angeles Tribune, we believe in giving a voice to the voiceless. We are proud to be the only national brand to empower everyday people to make a difference. Since 1886, our reputation has been built on truth and responsibility. Thank you for watching and making a difference.
For general inquiries, contact today. Thank you on behalf of the Los Angeles Tribune team.
And hello and welcome back. Welcome back to the Los Angeles Tribune and the Dr. Natalie show. I know it's been a while, but we've gotten into this habit of every 2 weeks. Now, there will be a little change with that because next week I want to be back with Today's World. The new segment I created to talk about issues of today. Still trying to figure out what exactly to talk about because a lot of the guests that I've asked are actually unavailable because they have some things to do, such as protesting, such as talking with ministers and politicians. So we'll figure it out. It might just be you and I talking about Today's World next week. So mark your calendars for that. However, today we're going to do some real talk or straight talk. I know we do that anyhow, but today I have a special guest who is also very focused on straight talk and who himself has a very interesting journey. So when I first got acquainted with him through social media, of course, I couldn't resist. I started following, I wouldn't call it stalking, but I started following and I wanted just to see what exactly does he do? Is he for real? And as far as I can tell, he's for real. So without any further ado, let me bring up Nolan Pillay, and I probably mispronounced your name just now. So hello and welcome, first of all.
Hi, Dr. Natalie.
It is so good to meet you, finally in person, so to speak.
Thank you so much. Thank you for the opportunity as well. I'm just so grateful to be here with you today.
Oh, so am I, because I can't wait to hear more about your story. And just to let the audience know, first of all, hello, everybody. Great to see you. Please let us know where you're from. The reason why I'm asking that is because the Los Angeles Tribune right now is everywhere. I'm in Germany. The Tribune is in Los Angeles, California, United States. And Nolan, you are in?
Johannesburg, South Africa.
So we're really global right now. We just need some of our regular visitors and viewers and engagers also from the Philippines and other places. So, Nolan, in case somebody doesn't know who you are, I always like to start out with my guests telling their own story because it's better straight talk from their own mouth. Tell everybody a little bit about you, first of all, would you?
Thank you, Dr. Natalie. So, it's such a long story, but basically Nolan comes from a poverty background. But as you know, I don't want to focus on poverty because 90% of the people in Africa go through poverty. I want to focus more about how one can get through poverty because it's not a very nice thing to be under. So I still remember me being a 10-year-old boy going out from one house to the next, selling Indian delicacies that my mom used to make. Now, Natalie, at 10 years old, you're going out and making these sales for one reason only, right? so that you could have food to have for supper. And it was very simple. If you did not make a sale, it just meant you go to bed hungry. But of course, it all wasn't lost because we still had water to sustain ourselves and we could still go to bed with something in our tummy. And further to that, the schools did provide some sandwiches for us in the form of peanut butter or jam sandwiches, and we were ever so grateful for that. I still recall going to school on a cold day with no jersey, and when I say no jersey, your bones are like feeling like brittle in this cold, rainy weather. There's no shoes. It just adds to it. So life was very difficult for me. And I know in my heart that my parents did their best to grow me up into the youngster that I am. But more so, going out and doing these sales was really a way of me and my siblings bonding. Yes, people used to laugh at us and wonder, why are you going out and doing things like this? But little did they realize it was all about survival for my family and I, for my siblings as well. For one, a few years, I remember becoming a PA. And now most of you may wonder, a PA, personal assistant? Absolutely not. It's actually a petrol attendant. In South Africa, we call them Bowser boys. That's filling petrol into people's cars. I know in the US, you get to fill your own gas now because there's no Bowser boys doing it. But cleaning the windscreen, filling the oil, checking the pressure, etc. I did most of that as well as part of still growing up and being in school. A lot of that growing up taught me to keep certain values. But hey, life doesn't happen the way we want life to happen, right? I remember it was 1989. I wrote my metric exams, and I'm so full of confidence because prior to that, for 5 years in a row, I'm Sportsman of the Year. I'm really excelling in the sporting arena. And I also thought with my education, I had my education intact up until that year when I wrote my metric exam and I went out to look for my results. Now, back then, we had to go to a newspaper office, wait up till midnight to see if your name appears in the paper. That's the way we got the results, unlike today where it's electronically. So I get this paper and I'm going through the list and I'm looking, my name is not here. So I ask a friend of mine, please come and check what's going on here. And he said, well, I'm sorry, your name is not there. So I went cold because if your name is not in the newspaper, it could just mean one thing, that you failed. So I still did not want to believe this. I decided to wake up early the next morning and go to the school and ask the principal and my teachers what's going on. And the principal, when I got there, he's scrummaging through these papers. And I knew at that time he knew that I failed, but maybe he was trying to make me feel a bit better. And eventually he came back and he said, I'm sorry, you failed. Wow. It was like a stab through my heart because I did not expect this to happen. Now, my home was about 500 meters away. Well, not 500, say 300 to 400 meters. And as I'm walking back home, there's only one thought in my mind, and that's suicide. Why at the time? I don't know. Maybe I went into a state of depression. I was sad and I did not know what to do. So I got home and I swallowed a whole lot of tablets, only to wake up in the hospital where the doctors were pumping this out of my system. Now, when I think back and wonder why I actually did something like this, it was more because when you live in a close-knit society, you are too embarrassed about what the neighbors, the community is going to think about you and your family. They're going to obviously call you a failure. They're going to look down on you. But they are too quick to judge and not realizing there could be things that went wrong during this exam, right? So I had to get out of this. And it was a very, and I guess God was on my side, right? I really believe God was on my side, Natalie, because that very same year, I knew a friend of mine whose dad worked in a manufacturing plant. And I said to him, can you please speak to your dad and get me a job? Because without a metric qualification, I could not get a job anyway. It was so difficult back then. So he says, let me speak to my dad. He spoke to his dad. His dad said to him, tell your friend to come to the outside of the gate and we'll see what we can do. So I get up about 5 a.m. in the morning. I'm at this venue or at the gate, and I'm waiting for him to come out and call my name. Now, I'm not alone. There's about 100 other people looking for jobs as well.
Right.
So his dad comes out, and he picks 10 people. And guess what? I'm not one of those 10. So again, I'm disheartened. Why not me? He told me to come. So I wait till about 9 a.m. He comes back the second time around and he picks 5 people, and I'm one of them. And what a job, Dr. Natalie. You know, my first job that was as a packer and a sweeper. So to the
Mhm.
audience, this basically meant I was packing. It was a factory that I worked in, a tea factory and a soup factory. It's packing these into bigger boxes and then
Right.
onto pallets, etc. And also sweeping and mopping around the floor. But I was grateful that I could earn some money and could help my family out as well. So that's still the part of where I started off working for a company.
Thank you for it. And I only came up there. There's much more that you can tell, but I wanted to come back in because you mentioned the suicide incident, and I think the way that you talked about it and explained it just is so important. And what I mean by that is a lot of people feel like that sometimes, and we forget to ask, well, what led to it? Why is it? And when you just said the close knit community, I think in families it's the same, isn't it? So
Yeah.
how do we help? Because I know you're very engaged in the community. How do we help people, especially young people, who feel the pressure, who don't know how to deal with failure, or how to tell their parents, how to tell their friends that they got, I don't know, an F in an exam that they didn't pass, so that they don't go where you went? What's your advice? Do you have any ideas how we can help them better?
Yeah, that's a good point, especially when you look at the youth of today as well. So, firstly, I would start with the parents.
Hmm.
Parents need to take accountability. I have 2 kids, so I know this. Parents need to take accountability in the way that they make sure that their child understands no matter what they're going through in school, no matter what results you bring him back home, it's okay, it's fine. You can try again and again. I know a lot of parents put pressure on their children to get really top qualifications and push them to going to universities, etc., because it's a parent's wish for the child.
Hmm.
So parents, we need to stop trying to set goals for our children. We need to be the companion and guide them on this. No matter what path they choose in life, we need to be there for them, especially with the youth of today. I always encourage the youth. I do a lot of work with the youth and I encourage them to speak up. Even if you don't want to speak up to your friends, find somebody neutral who you can actually talk to. I know the youth of today go through so much of pressures, Dr. Natalie. It's unbelievable. In one of the schools that I was coaching children in, a child came up to me and he said to me that my parents said I should not like on this boy because he's a different color. So
Yes.
I immediately threw it back to the child and I said, "So what do you feel? What do you think?" And he said, "No, I shouldn't be listening to what my parents said." I said, "Exactly. You need to question and ask your parents why you want me to do this." So from a support point of view, it must start with the parents. From a student or a youth point of view, you you need to reach out to us. We are here to help you. We are here to work with you and know whatever you're going through, don't even think of yourself as a failure.
Yes.
Don't ever try and pick up the lesson that you can learn from that incident.
Mhm. I love how you say that because one of my big passions is the youth, and the audience knows that. I talk a lot about the young people and how we can support them. I'm a I don't know, reformed teacher. I don't think so. I always teach everything that we do. We teach. The youth, though, is so crucial to us. And you mentioned that you're a dad. I'm a mom, and there will be times when we need to let our kids just explore, right? As scary as that sometimes is, but then pick them back up. And our youth is so, in general, of course, under so much pressure from social media, from the home, from trying to figure out what is real, what isn't real. I think it's gotten harder and harder, or is it just me thinking that it's gotten harder compared to when I grew up?
I think the pressures on the youth today are much more, and a lot of the pressures are self inflicted. You
Mm,
could just be, and maybe I'm just saying this because now I'm a full grown adult, but I strongly believe that the youth at the position that they are in, if they are very much grounded with
mhm.
obviously our experience, our assistance, they will be fine. We just need to teach them how to pause and not to mimic or copy what their friends are doing. Of course, you're going to get those super rich kids out there as well. that somebody wants to say, well, I want to be like that person. But we need to remind them that they are unique, right? God created us all so uniquely with our own DNAs. We need to appreciate that and appreciate ourselves more
Mhm.
than ever. And this is where the self love comes into play. If we know that we need to love ourselves first as the youth of today, then there's nothing that's going to stop us or interfere with who we become as people. And, to be truthful, Dr. Natalie, social media has a lot to do with this, unfortunately, because
Yes.
people don't use social media in the right way. And if we look at the filter systems, etc., the youth of today are always changing the way they look to be
Hmm.
like somebody they're not. And this is so dangerous, so dangerous. And I'll give you an example. Let's say somebody meets on a social media platform and they say, okay, let's meet for coffee or lunch or something. And you meet this person and you look at them and say, but you're not the same person I've been talking to.
Yes. Yes.
Immediately, this is going to lead to conflict because the trust has been broken because they were
Hmm.
trying to be somebody else. And from that conflict, we don't know what happens. Could be gender based violence, anything can happen. So it's so dangerous. So, to the youth out there that are listening, don't try and be somebody you are not. You're unique. Be the best version of yourself. Don't try and copy anyone else.
Yes, and but I think that actually that goes for adults too. I mean,
Absolutely.
there's so many examples out there, social media or elsewhere. You know, we always say, "Well, I look up to somebody," and I had that conversation with somebody very close to me. I said, "I don't really want you to look up to somebody because if you look up to somebody, it means you're always not
Right.
enough." You're always striving to be like that, to have some of their characteristics, and you'll never match up to them because you're you. So there's a lot in this conversation also for, coaches like you and I. Are we going to do what everybody else does? Do we market like everybody else does because that's what is supposedly selling and then we can help more
Yeah.
people? It's always, I think, a challenge to really maintain our inner self, isn't it?
Absolutely. And I'm glad you mentioned the coaching as well. Gone are the days where we need to coach others from a script.
Mhm.
We need to coach others from a place of authenticity
Yes.
because that's what people relate to. That's what people can resonate with. So when we come from an area like that, your student will appreciate you much more as well. So be real. Don't try and be, like you said with adults. Adults do this all the time. They try and be somebody they're not. And
Hmm. Hmm.
the one thing they shouldn't do is don't be ashamed of yourself. Like we said, God created us uniquely for a reason. We have such immense potential within us. We need to unleash that.
Yes. And I know that you, I believe you use the phrase, be the best version of yourself.
Yeah.
Um, and to be honest, I got some issues with that statement, but we can talk about that. you know, why do you use that phrase? Because it is true in so many ways. Why do you use that phrase, and what exactly do you mean with that? Be the best version of yourself.
So, in a nutshell, it's basically saying your only competition should be yourself. Because the moment we try and get out of this place that we are in and want to compete with friends or family or whoever's out there, then things start changing and you lose your originality and your authenticity as well. So to me, when I say be the best version of yourself, I want you to rock up in any situation as your best self. And I'll give you an example. Let's say, for example, you're going for an interview and you cannot afford this coat because of your circumstances. Go as you are and have the ability to say to the person that's interviewing you, you know what, I must apologize, but I could not afford to get a coat to use for today. The person that's interviewing you will appreciate that comment more because, and I hope they appreciate it more because they can see the honesty coming from you. So when I say be the best version as well, focus first on your human values. And I
Mhm.
always start with there. And the reason why I do that is if you look at the world we live in, there's a mix of races, religions, sex, culture, whatever it is. Now, I want you to practice how you can be your best self. And by doing this is, for example, if I want to understand who Dr. Natalie is, I want to understand your culture, your religion. where you're from. And when you understand where Nolan comes from, his culture, etc., would we not carry on better or get on along better? Of course, we're going to be more tolerant of each other. Imagine if we can spread this message to the world and teach them racial tolerance, religious tolerance. We will get on so much more better. So, be the best version of yourself is all about being you, for you, and compete with yourself. Because when you wake up every morning, ask yourself, what can you do differently today that can make you a better person? And I must say, Dr. Natalie, I learned this very late in life. I must have been in my 40s when I started understanding this a bit more as well. Because nobody's perfect. Nobody lives a perfect life. We learn it as we go along, right?
Yes, I love that you said that because I've got issues with some of the accustomed words because I'm always trying to see, well, what does it really mean? And so one of the words is failure. I sort of try not to allow it in my house, for example, because I think it's not true. Not only from what we see, and you've said it as well, failure just means there might be another door opening, or what is the lesson that you're learning? And I looked up the word. I'm a historian by trade, so I looked up the origin of the word, and it means, to not see it the way others see it.
Yeah.
Yes. So a failure then means, whether it's an exam at school or whether it's, not getting a job, it means you didn't see it the way others see it. Now, how can you change your point of view? What other doors opening? And so, another word, of course, is the word race that I've got huge issues with, but that's for another story, because this is about you. And so you are originally from South Africa.
Yep.
Good.
I'm
And
actually fourth generation South African.
yes. So there are a lot of ideas about South Africa, stereotypes, stigma. And just for everybody to understand, culture is not just South Africa. Then there's cultures in South Africa and in Germany and in the US. And then there's family cultures and there's tribal cultures. So if you were to explain to somebody South Africa, what would you say? How would you explain South Africa to others?
I would say it's a mixture of everything that you can find on this earth.
Yeah.
So to speak, because you're right, we have so many different languages in South Africa, and within. So this really bothers me a lot, right? Because I don't like using the words black and white.
Mm-hmm.
And in South Africa, I fall under the black category, but they've gone on further to call me Indian black, and they call another person African black or colored black. Why can't you just call us human? Why can't you appreciate us for who we are? So when we have these kind of segregations, and this segregation came back is here for a very long time, Dr. Natalie. I don't know if you know much about apartheid South Africa, but I've
Yes.
lived through that. So that segregation started way back in there, where I feel the government puts you into different areas so that you don't get along with each other and you don't like each other. And now, if you look at South Africa, since we got our freedom, we all should be coming together as a one, as uh, as basically portraying oneness in a way. But we still have issues around us, and of course, within each, like an Indian black, we have different religions already, so it's always divided. But I would say South Africa is in it's so cultured, and when we really get together, like if there's a sporting event, we can carry on like a house on fire. We can get on so well with each other, it's unbelievable. But when that sporting event is not here, we tend to be bickering at each other, making other people feel less than who they should be, less valued. And I guess this could be in all of the countries as well. So, it's just a mixed breed of wherever we are. And I like to go back to us not being so segregated, even in this day and age.
Yes. And that's the reason why I asked you about South Africa, because there are so many stereotypes. And there are other countries like that too. I mean, Germany, there are a lot of stereotypes as well. And yet it seems to be sort of the same pattern. When there's a sporting event, when there's something where people can pull together, they're all, yeah, we're all one.
Yeah.
And then right after that, we're only seeing our differences. We're no longer seeing the similarities. It's like I'm better. That all the categories keep popping back up. And when I'm thinking about categories, I'm thinking about coaching. Others may go in a different direction, but coaching, you and I, we're both coaches, and we both help others transform their life. Personally, I prefer the term mentoring.
Yeah.
So when we're talking categories, you're a coach. Why did you choose to coach? Let's go there first. Why do you choose to coach? What are you trying to achieve with that?
That's a good question. So, we all have this coaching or mentoring in us, I guess, ever since we little, right?
Mm-hmm.
And we grow into it. For me, the change came about when I was working in corporate and I was working with a whole lot of youth. And when I was getting the feedback from this youth, I realized that I was adding value to their lives. And just by being able to relate what my experience was and to help them through it, they could just resonate easily. The moment I realized that I could add value to somebody else's life, I realized this is the area that I need to be focusing on a bit more, because this is so needed now. If I look at, like I said, with the youth in Africa as well,
Mm-hmm.
this is the generation that we need more than ever to lead all our countries into a better place,
Yeah.
because the world is kind of in shambles at the moment. And if we're not there to nurture our youth and share all this knowledge that we have gained with them, where will they be in 5 years' time? So, as we were youth at one point, me being a youth, I never have a coach or a mentor or an uncle or an aunt that could be there all the time and say, "Hey, Nolan, this is what you're doing now is wrong, or
Mm-hmm.
what you're doing is right. Keep on this path." Nobody was there for me, and I guess that's why I realized that now is the time to be there for the other humans that will take this world forward.
Yeah.
So I hope I answered your question.
Oh, absolutely. And it's beautiful the way that you answer it, because it means that you're a servant leader. You've
Yeah,
gone through things and now you want to, I don't want to say give back, but you want to share your knowledge and
yeah,
possibly help others not have to go through the same stuff, you
absolutely.
know.
Yeah.
Now you've gone through all of that, and then you decided to possibly share your knowledge. And then there is Straight Talk with Nolan. So, what is that all about? How did it come to be, and what is it all about?
Cool. So Straight Up with Nolan is a company that started in 2015. But I must be honest, from 2015 to 2019, I didn't do much with the company because I was too comfortable in a corporate world. I was enjoying traveling twice a month internationally, getting paid a good salary, etc. But in 2019, and I remember the month, June 2019, I went through some inhumane behavior in the corporate world.
Mm,
And I could not believe that in 2019, we could still experience this in a professional environment. But you spoke about earlier on about using these obstacles or these challenges as an opportunity to learn and grow from. That's exactly what I did. I saw it as my beautiful destruction. And I say it was my beautiful destruction because it allowed me to remove myself from that toxic environment and start finding purpose and start finding what Nolan wants to do. And it was at this point that I said, well, you have the company Straight Talk with Nolan. Why don't you relaunch it? And that very same year, September, I relaunched the company and I started focusing on various aspects within it, which I've streamlined into coaching slash mentoring,
mhm,
inspirational and motivational speaking. And now I also do my own podcast shows as well. So Straight Talk with Nolan is all about this company that can come in and start grooming, starting with the youth. And I've set myself a huge mission or huge target of that, and that's to touch 1 million lives in Africa. And when I say touch 1 million lives, I mean it's changing the mindset or the way the youth of today think, because it's a
mhm,
major problem in our country at the moment. Because when, let's call it, a politician, and I'll say it out loud, says jump, the youth will always ask how high
mhm.
versus why do you want me to jump? So I want to change the way they think so that they can question all these wrong teachings that are coming to them. and teach them how to be bold and bright. So that's the whole essence of Straight Talk with Nolan, is to make a major impact out there to the world.
Awesome. And yes, critical thinking, I believe, is an art that deserves to be rejuvenated. Let's put it that way. As everybody knows, I've lived a long time in the United States, and I was very surprised at students there who did not know how to think critically, or people, and I think the youth as well, a little bit, generally speaking, across the globe right now, they're not used to critique, and they don't understand the difference between criticism and critique. I mean, a mentor, a teacher, a parent, I believe, and debate me if you want, critiques a child because they love them, or critiques a friend. Like my friend and I, we talk, and I say, I didn't like the way you did that. It made me feel a certain way. And then they can change if they choose to or not. So it's like, it's feedback that they can then utilize. But I've noticed a lot of people today, especially young people, don't know how to take that. They often feel that they're being attacked right away somehow.
Yeah.
I don't know where that comes from.
I think it could be from a lot of peer pressure on their side.
Mm-hmm.
And I totally agree with you, because even me as a person, I always ask people for feedback on how I am doing in life and in general, because I know I can take that feedback and use it to better myself.
Right.
So with the students of today, maybe they're scared, and this comes from a lot of conditioning. They're kind of scared that when you say something, they see it in a negative light. They don't see it as an opportunity to look deep into what I was told them and start improving based on that. So we need to teach them to not take things personally. Because if I say to a youth, for example, hey, your behavior is out of order, I'm not saying it because I want to be nasty to them. I'm saying it in the best interest of them,
Right.
because I value them. So maybe the way we should approach it, Dr. Natalie, is we need to show them that we care about them.
Mm-hmm.
We need to show them that we can add value to their lives, and we really mean what we're saying. We're not just saying it for no reason, because that does happen as well, right?
Yes,
It
of
happens a
course.
lot.
Of course. Yes, a lot. I love this conversation, and I got more questions for you, about your books, about the work that we do, that you do particularly, and I want to talk about the youth. However, it is about halfway through the show, so we're going to take a teeny tiny break, and that means I can have a sip of water, you can have a sip of water, and everybody, don't go anywhere. We'll be right back in about 50 seconds.
Welcome to the Los Angeles Tribune page. Here you will find original news programming, exclusive digital events, and shows that are directly from the community. At the Los Angeles Tribune, we believe in giving a voice to the voiceless. We are proud to be the only national brand to empower everyday people to make a difference. Since 1886, our reputation has been built on truth and responsibility. Thank you for watching and making a difference.
For general inquiries, contact today. Thank you on behalf of the Los Angeles Tribune team.
And we're right back with Johannesburg, or better, Nolan Pillay. I want to ask the first question after we've covered a little bit of your background, and I know there's a lot more. One of your books is actually called Breaking Bad Habits in 90 Days. So, bad habits, breaking them 90 days. That's a lot of pressure on somebody reading that book. Talk to me about the book and how we can achieve that, in your opinion.
So the reason, firstly, why it's 90 days, they say it takes about 90 days to break an old bad habit.
Mm-hmm.
So in the book, basically, it goes through a 90-day period where you can list habits that you experience, and it guides you on how to kind of break those habits, right? Because of the conditioning that we have, none of us were taught to be grateful for things that we have. like gratitude, for example. So in that book, basically, I'm saying to people that every single morning when you wake up, list 5 things that you should be grateful for. And even if it's the same things, like you're grateful for waking up every single day, that's okay because you should be grateful for waking up to see another day. And I also prompt them to do this at night as well. So, for example, tonight before I get to bed, I'm going to say I'm so thankful and grateful that I was on the Dr. Natalie show today. So, it's things like this. I try to emphasize that the more things we are grateful for,
Mhm.
the fewer things we should be ungrateful for.
Right.
And it goes with the saying, uh, and it's directed at anyone, even adults as well, because we may think that the youth are not grateful, but even adults as well. I teach them some positive affirmations in there. I teach them it's about self love. So when you're brushing and looking at the mirror, for example, nothing stops you by saying, "I love you, Nolan. I love you, Nolan." Re-emphasizing how important you are. So over this 90-day period, you get to break these bad habits that you have. But of course, you cannot break a habit if you don't know what it is. And the only person that will know whether that habit is serving you or not is you. So I
Mhm.
leave you to question yourself and note it down and then write things to offset that.
So, very often I have found that we have a hard time identifying our bad habits, or especially, of course, the subconscious ones, because we
Yes.
get triggered and we see we're triggered, but we don't know where it's coming from. We don't know exactly, how to deal with it. So, do you think it's possible to identify and change your so-called bad habits yourself, or do you think it's better to have somebody, whether it's your wife, your spouse, your best friend, a mentor? Do you think it's better to have somebody give you feedback on that, or do it all by yourself?
I think it's a mixture
Hmm.
because feedback again is so important in breaking through these bad habits as well. I would not know of a bad habit that I have towards my wife. Maybe I would think, okay, this is normal for me to carry on in this way until she prompts me and says, but hey, Nolan, this is what you're doing all the time. And then I start to think that, okay, this is really affecting her. I need to question myself, why am I behaving in this way or why am I telling her this? So this is where you need to do a lot of self work, right?
Hmm.
And it's like shadow work. You're
Yeah.
not behaving in the way that you are now currently because you want to. You're behaving in this way because something along the way happened and you just stuck with that bad habit, right?
Hmm.
So if we look at eating unhealthy as an example, it's not the best of examples, but when we're growing up, we taught to eat whatever is put on the table, be it healthy or unhealthy. But as we grow up, we realize, okay, maybe this is not going to be healthy for me anymore because it has a lot of oil content in there. So that's a bad habit that we need to break. Waking up in the morning and just going and brushing your teeth and starting your day like nothing happens, not setting any intentions, etc. That's a bad habit. What if you could do it differently? Wake up, say your gratitude, make an intention statement for the day. See how that works for you. When that starts working well for you and you see the results coming, you want to stay on that track as well. So it
Right.
is a mixture. But of course, a lot of people that have not been accustomed to this need mentors and coaches. There's no doubt because they have no experience in it. Nobody's taught them this.
Right, right. And it's interesting because sometimes the bad habits are autopilot, right? We don't
Yeah.
even, like you mentioned, getting up in the morning. I mean, are we really, are many people really paying attention to what am I doing first? What am I doing second? Or is it just all of a sudden you find yourself in the office or in the car or on the train?
Yeah.
Those are always interesting things. And when you were just, bringing up the example with your wife, I was also going back to, and hello to your wife. I think she's in the audience. She said a couple of things. So I also,
my, my number one fan.
good. I like that. I like that. Um, Sometimes combining bad habits and culture, sometimes a word that you may mean as a compliment may trigger me in the completely different manner. I think the audience knows one of those words for me is cute. Just cannot take the word cute. It's just like, no, 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 no. But I know it's meant nicely as a compliment, right?
Yeah.
So I had to have a conversation with people about that they know when they say that word, I may get triggered. And I know when so sometimes it's just about the communication, isn't it?
Yeah. No, indeed, and I'm hoping that the person would that said the word cute would say to you, Dr. Natalie, how would you prefer me to call you, or what would you prefer me to call you? Because then now I'm respecting the way you would like to be called. And you're right, it's with different cultures, and also with different languages as well. So something as in the term Afrikaans may be like a good word to Afrikaners, but to an English-speaking person, they could see it as an insult until they
Mhm.
understand what they're really trying to mean, right?
Right. Right, absolutely. And then, these are bad habits or maybe just habits. And Ivan or Ivan, I'm not sure how to pronounce the name, has a question for you. And the question is, what advice would you give someone who is going through depression or a very difficult moment and doesn't have the mental clarity to find a way out?
Wow.
And the question is for you, so I can't answer.
That's a good question, Ivan. And that's a friend, a soul brother of mine who's all the way from Portugal. So,
Beautiful,
you
yes.
know, a lot of people are going through depression now, Dr. Natalie, and they don't know how to reach out. And it's more of they need to open up. They need to realize there are safe spaces where we can open the door for them to be vulnerable. And
Mhm.
that's what they need to do. Don't try and fix this on your own. And I'll give you an example, right? We know COVID came along and it took out a lot of people. There's so many people that have lost their loved ones that are still in this depressive state because they have not made sense of what has happened, like all of us as well. But you need to speak. The more you stay in this depressive state and not voicing yourself, guess what's going to happen? It's eventually going to lead to more sicknesses, and more sicknesses eventually leads to us fading away, and you don't want that with your life. So I want you to value your life and reach out to people that have been on similar journeys. So it depends what if you've been through suicide or contemplating suicide, etc. Speak to a person who's been on that journey, understand what they've been through, and watch how quicker you will resonate with it. So in summary, I would say reach out to people that can create a safe space for you. And it's very important that you reach out to people that can create the safe space and not make a joke of what you're actually going through. You got to do that. Find the right people. There's thousands of people out there. There's many people that you can reach out to. I mean, Dr. Natalie says that, and myself as well. We do a lot of work in this space as well. So, reach out to us. And if we are not close by, find somebody who's closer to you. But just know that it's okay not to be okay. It
Mhm.
really is.
I think that is so important. It's okay not to be okay. And it's a step towards being able to voice that. The vulnerability, and that's so important to me, is actually a strength. Because if you're able to say, I'm not okay on live TV streaming across the globe, then it means you are able to handle whatever the feedback is. So being able to say, I'm not okay, really, in my opinion, means that you're one of the strongest people out there. Otherwise, you wouldn't be able to even voice it. And the only things that I would add to, what Nolan said is go out of your house, go
Yeah.
out in nature, and if possible, find an animal you can take care of. Because very often, communicating with nature, and I'm just going to throw animals in there as well, really helps us see things differently. Those are things that I have found a lot. Even if you're just taking a walk, and we know that there's something that's called, forest bathing, where we cleanse ourselves, but being out, because then suddenly we see things with different eyes. So I think that's also very important. Thank you for that question, Yvonne. Very important. Sharing your story and finding the right people. And there are also, by the way, hotlines. There are a lot of hotlines in every country.
Yeah,
They're there for a reason. And when you call them up, there's somebody who listens to you and maybe they
yeah,
have some advice. Um,
yeah.
you just mentioned something as well, Nolan, while you were, sharing your wonderful thoughts and how somebody can work on that. You mentioned COVID. And there are hundreds of thousands of people who have different opinions on COVID, what it is, what it isn't. However, if I'm not mistaken, you also wrote a book about it. So,
Yeah.
COVID, depression, dis-ease. Talk to me about this book and why you wrote it.
So it's based on my journey through COVID. In January 2021, after being very stubborn about it and spending 8 days at home, my family decided that they would take me by force into the hospital. I did not want to go to a hospital because I did not believe this COVID thing was real. All I know is prior to those 8 days, I tasted some chemicals on my mouth. And because I live very close to the airport, I thought when the planes are landing, they dump the fuel and that could have gone onto my mouth and that caused some damage. But when they got me into casualty, my oxygen levels were 58%. And the doctor looked at my family, my wife and my son, and he just shook his head, indicating that this guy is not in a good way. They put on these oxygen tubes for me, etc. And I ended up spending 13 days in the intensive care unit. And Dr. Natalie, I can tell you, it's not a nice experience. Every time the door opens, I was very close to a door. Every time the door opens and families come in and put in their COVID gear, you just know they're coming to say goodbye to their loved ones. And where I was as well, people are dying every day. When you find a bed going past you with their head covered, you know it's another one. So you got to watch all of this trauma, and still try and focus on yourself. And I asked myself, so when is my turn? And I shouldn't be asking myself that question, but I'm human. I'm allowed to experience all of this. And on day 6, when I saw a doctor pass away, the doctor was actually pulling out all these cords, falling on the floor, and he says, I need to die. I want to die. Please leave me. He was saying this to the nurses. I got in touch with my family, thankfully for technology, and I said to them, I can't do this anymore. And my daughter said something to me, and it stuck with me. She said to me, Dad, don't forget what your purpose is. And she took a copy of this. You're not going to be able to see it clear, but this is my gold card that I carry in my pocket every single day. She said, don't forget what your purpose is. Immediately, I had to snap out of this victim, this self pity mindset, and start working on myself, increase my meditation, my prayer, do some breathing exercises, etc. After this time, I did a quick video and I shared it on social media. And I could barely record 10 seconds, I remember. And I was gasping for breath. And somebody on there, or there were two ladies that said to me, the world needs to hear your story. It was then and then that I decided I needed to write a book. But how? I don't know because I've never been an author. I knew it needed to be done, but I wasn't sure how to get it done. So when I got out from hospital, in fact, 13 days later, they discharged me on condition that I needed to be on an oxygen tank for 1 month. When I came home, I started practicing on starting to walk again, starting to be without this oxygen. And believe it or not, after 2 weeks, I got in touch with the people from the oxygen company. I said, please come and take this away and give it to somebody who needs it. I am fine. I am going to be fine. And during this spell, I said, okay, let's put pen to paper and start writing this book. So the book is written for two reasons. One, a lot of people have lost their loved ones and they haven't come to terms with it. In this book, you see firsthand what a COVID patient goes through, and it allows you to reach some peace and some closure in your life. The second part is I share mind hacks and techniques that I used on myself to get through this COVID journey. And there's so many different tricks in there. One of it I mentioned is visualization. I was visualizing myself being out of this ICU in a ward for 2 days and then walking to a car that's waiting for me and bringing me home. And it happened the way I said it, except I could not walk out from the hospital because of COVID protocol. They put me into a wheelchair and they took me to the exit. And from there, I jumped into the car and went. So that was the key why I've written this book, is just to help other people, help other humans that are still struggling with COVID and everything that COVID has done.
And I would venture to say, even though COVID is your experience, there are other diseases that we can also overcome.
Yeah,
Sometimes we need the help, sometimes we need to be in the ICU, but also the inner work. So I'm sure that some of the techniques that you're sharing can also be applied in other conditions, as we have
absolutely.
seen as well. But that, of
Yeah.
course, is a very scary story, a real one, but it is very scary. And Sima was saying, I remember it. So I'm sure there was a bit of discomfort as well with that. You mentioned while you were talking about this book, Goal Card. And Ivan, of course, Ivan jumped right in and said, a goal card can be powerful. So, what
Yeah.
is a goal card? What is it, and why should everybody use it?
So this is something, Dr. Natalie, and I must pass it on to the late legend Bob Proctor, because this is where I learned it from. So a
Yes.
goal card is basically a list of goals that I would like to achieve in my life. Now, the reason why I write this down and keep it in my pocket is every time I put my right hand in my pocket, I'm reminded of my goal. I'm reminded of what I still need to achieve. And this kind of changes very often because my goals manifest and then I got to update it all the time. So it's a reminder. So a lot of people float around the world without having an idea or direction of where they're going to, right? So think of a goal card as a destination. If you want to drive from here to Los Angeles, for example, obviously you have to have a goal plan in place. I will stop here, I will stop there, etc., until I reach my final destination. Likewise, a goal card is a list of items or things that you want to achieve in your life. But
Hmm.
write it down and follow through with it. It's very important. Like I said, the important thing for me is keeping it in the pocket. And every time my hand is in my pocket, it's a reminder. And I
Hmm.
keep this with me all the time as well. So if you haven't got one, do one or get in touch and I can guide you on how to create one. It's such
Yes.
a simple technique, but a powerful technique indeed.
Yes, and whether it's a goal card, which I know the wonderful Bob Proctor has taught for many years. It is other things also, little reminders. So whether you write down the goals or whether you have a little pictures, I'm not talking about the vision map or anything, but little things that every time just remind you. It's a different way of an affirmation, but extremely powerful because we happen to live in this world, so there are lots of distractions.
Yeah.
you know,
Oh,
especially as parents or as if we have siblings, if we are kids, we have parents that we need. I mean, there's a lot going on. Nolan, I love what you're doing. There's one question that I've been wondering about, and it has nothing necessarily to do with how you teach and how you train and how you help transform and you speak. But Mind Valley keeps popping up with you very prominently, not just in your own studies, but you're also saying that you're a Mind Valley ambassador. And that's right there in your bio.
yeah.
I've always loved Mind Valley, so I'm not going to talk bad about it. But why? What does it mean to be a Mind Valley ambassador? Why is this so important to you that with everything that you're doing, that's still part of your bio?
So I love the question. I love the way you said it, Dr. Natalie, as well. It's because even though I do what I do by coaching others, speaking to others, passing on all these the knowledge that I have, I still need to do self work every single day. So what Mind Valley provides and being an ambassador basically means that you connect with like-minded people, and this is so beautiful because the conversation with like-minded people is so different from having a conversation with a person that's always complaining and whining. So Mind Valley to me provides something where every single day I can do a lesson to work on myself, be it my soul, my mind, or my body, whatever it is. It provides this platform for me, and it's powerful because I'm currently doing a session now with Mary Diamond
Yes.
as well. Yeah, so it's so beautiful, and she speaks about your environment and the numbers and everything that's important. And it teaches one about decluttering and things like that. So every day, there's so much more you can actually learn from Mind Valley as well. I joined them about 3 years ago, and it was at a time when it was 2019. I was going through my own challenges back then as well, by leaving corporate, etc. And I realized I needed to work on myself. And I realize every single day I'm still a work in progress. I will never be perfect, but I can learn from everything I'm going through and grow through it as well. A lot of people tend to just go through life. I would say to them, learn and grow through life. It's much more rewarding.
Yes, I love that you're taking lessons with Marie Diamond right now. She's one of my mentors as well, and she is just an amazing human
Beautiful
being.
thought.
It's
Beautiful.
Yes, and I have the pleasure of spending some time with her in ATL Europe twice a year, plus more. So there are so many wonderful teachers out there, and also in Mind Valley, of course, because that is like a hub for amazing
Yes.
people. But I think the most important thing, whether it's Marie, whether it's Vishnu, whether it's Christy, the thing is evolve,
Yeah.
right? We need to work on ourselves, and I love how you put it, because that's part of why I want to do the show, that people see, when we don't wake up and every day we go like, yeah, this is it. No, sometimes I wake up in the morning, I don't know about you, and I'm like, oh my God, it's 10 to 6. Really? Again? And then I'm like, okay, no, I'm here. And then I write my gratitude, I meditate gratitude, and I go through my rituals. But there are mornings or afternoons where I'm like, okay, I need a break. It's
Yeah.
not always just easy. How is it for you? Is it always just like, yeah, or
No, it's never. We humans, and we're such a delicate species. We all go through this, and we actually should be allowing ourselves, for example, to listen to our bodies as well. We're not robots. We cannot do everything. So there are times when you just need to chill and take a break, uh, and just don't overdo it, because when you start valuing yourself and treating your body like a temple, you'll have the utmost respect for it, and you'll appreciate it a bit more, and you'll know when you need to take a break, right? Even if it's 10 to 6 in the morning, and if you feel that, okay, I need to sleep in, I'm not going to go out for my run, do it.
yes?
Do it.
Well, in that instance, I chose to have a child. I need to help to get up. So I can't just say, I'm not doing this.
Yeah.
However, I choose also to get up 40 minutes before I wake her up. And that's because that's me time. And so even though I might go in the morning like, I don't know, the minute that I'm going like, wow, look, there's still the star. Then I start right into gratitude. We all have our rituals. Nolan, we're almost out of time. So what is the one piece of advice? What are the two pieces of advice that you want to leave to the global audience today and for as long as our show exists? I'm going to give you the stage and just let everybody know what you think they need to know at this point in time.
Thank you for that, Dr. Natalie. I think the first one is, whenever you meet anyone, and I've learned this also through my learnings along the way, whenever you meet someone, make sure you leave that conversation adding some value to them. Now, a lot of people go about life differently, and they only chase, let's call it, the dollar all the time. Don't chase the dollar, chase the value or the impact you can make to someone's life. And the reason why I say this is, when I impart something to you, automatically I'm changing the way you see life or your day. You will obviously have this ripple effect. You will pass this on to someone else and someone else as well. So that's the first part. Also, always make sure you leave somebody with some impression of increase. And I live by that. The second part is, we all are such unique beings. Tap into yourself and find that place inside yourself where nothing is impossible. And I speak this from my personal experiences. Dr. Natalie spoke about my COVID experience. I took that painful experience and I turned it into a successful story. Why? Because I dug deep and I realized that nothing is impossible. and you can do it as well. So my wish for you is focus on yourself. Just remember, whatever you are going through at the moment, be it a struggle or obstacle or whatever it is in life, see something in that as an opportunity to learn from it and grow through it. Just don't go through it. Because when you go through it, you're going to stay stagnant. Just live uncomfortably. When you live uncomfortably, it's going to be the best thing you have ever done to your life. Trust me.
Yes, we need to get out of our comfort zone. Thank you so much, Nolan. Really appreciate you making the time. I can't wait for another possible conversation and whatever else happens. But you sure have provided a lot of value to me, and I know to the audience today. So thank you so much, Nolan. Thank you to everybody in the audience, interactive and non-interactive. Always appreciate you. Come back next week, Today's World, but also get in touch with Nolan. He's pretty easy to find as well. Thank you, everybody. See you next week.
Thank you. Thanks, everyone. Bye-bye.